Hey guys, Lord Naren White here, the Holy Ghost, the one true God. Back with you with the next video in my series reading Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens. Without further ado, returning to Oliver Twist as read by Lord Naren White. Why, that would not be an extraordinary thing under the circumstances, replied the doctor, though I don't think he is. Have you seen the thief? No, rejoined the old lady. Nor heard anything about him? No. I beg your pardon, ma'am, imposed Mr. Giles, but I was going to tell you about him when Dr. Losberne came in. The fact was that Mr. Giles had not, at first, been able to bring his mind to the avowal that he had only shot a boy. Such commendations had been bestowed upon his bravery that he could not, for the life of him, help postponing the explanation for a few delicious minutes, during which he flourished in the very zenith of a brief reputation for undaunted courage. Rose wished to see the man, said Mrs. Maylie, but I wouldn't hear of it. Humph, rejoined the doctor. There is nothing very alarming in his appearance. Have you any objection to see him in my presence? If it be necessary, replied the old lady. Certainly not. Then I think it is necessary, said the doctor. At all events, I am quite sure that you would deeply regret not having done so if you postponed it. He is perfectly quiet and comfortable now. Allow me, Miss Rose, will you permit me? Not the slightest fear. I pledge you my honor. Chapter 30 relates what Oliver's new visitors thought of him. With many loquacious assurances that they would be agreeably surprised in the aspect of the criminal, the doctor drew the young lady's arm through one of him, and, offering his disengaged hand to Mrs. Maylie, led them, with much ceremony and stateliness, upstairs. Now, said the doctor in a whisper, as he softly turned the handle of a bedroom door, let us hear what you think of him. He has not been shaved very recently, but he don't look at all ferocious notwithstanding. Stop, though. Let me first see that he is in visiting order. Stepping before them, he looked gently into the room. Motioning them to advance, he closed the door when they had entered, and gently drew back the curtains of the bed. Upon it, in lieu of the dogged, black-visaged ruffian they had expected to behold, there lay a mere child, worn with pain and exhaustion, and sunk into a deep sleep. His wounded arm, bound and splintered up, was crossed upon his breast, his head reclining upon the other arm, which was half hidden by his long hair as it streamed over the pillow. The honest gentleman held the curtain in his hand, and looked on for a minute or so in silence. Whilst he was watching the patient thus, the young lady glided softly past, and, seating herself in a chair by the bedside, gathered Oliver's hair from his face. As she stooped over him, her tears fell upon his forehead. The boy stirred and smiled in his sleep, as though these marks of pity and compassion had awakened some pleasant dream of a love and affection he had never known. Thus a strain of gentle music, or the rippling of water in a silent place, or the odor of a flower, or the mention of a familiar word, will sometimes call up sudden dim remembrances of scenes that never were, in this life which vanished like a breath, which some brief memory of a happier existence long gone by would seem to have awakened, which no voluntary exertion of the mind can ever recall. What can this mean? Exclaimed the elder lady. This poor child can never have been the pupil of robbers. Vice, said the surgeon, replacing the curtain, takes up her abode in many temples, and who can say that a fair outside shall not enshrine her? But at so early an age? Urged Rose. My dear young lady, rejoined the surgeon, mournfully shaking his head. Crime, like death, is not confined to the old and withered alone. The youngest and fairest are too often like its chosen victims. But can you really believe that this delicate boy has been the voluntary associate of the worst outcasts of society? Said Rose. The surgeon shook his head, in a manner which intimated that he feared it was very possible, and observed that they might disturb the patient, led the way into an adjoining apartment. But even if he has been wicked, pursued Rose, think how young he is. Think that he may never have known a mother's love, or the comfort of a home, that ill usage and blows, or the want of bread, may have driven him to herd with men who have forced him to guilt. Aunt, dear aunt, for mercy's sake, think of this, before you let them drag this sick child to a prison, which in any case must be the grave of all his chances of amendment. Oh, as you love me, and you know I have never felt the want of parents in your goodness and affection, but that I might have done so, and might have been equally helpless and unprotected with this poor child. Have pity upon him before it is too late. My dear love, said the elder lady, as she folded the weeping girl to her bosom, do you think I would harm a hair of his head? Oh, no, replied Rose eagerly. No, surely, said the old lady. My days are drawing to their close, and may mercy be shown to me as I show it to others. What can I do to save him, sir? Let me think, ma'am, said the doctor. Let me think. Mr. Losberne thrust his hands into his pockets and took up several turns up and down the room, often stopping and balancing himself on his toes, and frowning frightfully. After various exclamations of, I've got it now, and no, I haven't, and as many renewals of the walking and frowning, he at length made a dead halt and spoke as follows. I think if you give me a full and unlimited commission to bully Giles and the little boy, Brittles, I can manage it. Giles is a faithful fellow and an old servant, I know, but you can make it up to him in 1,000 ways, and reward him for being such a good shot besides. You don't object to that? Unless there's some other way of preserving the child, replied Mrs. Maylie. There is no other, said the doctor. No other, take my word for it. Then my aunt invests you with full power, said Rose, smiling through her tears. But don't be harder upon the poor fellows than is indispensably necessary. You seem to think, retorted the doctor, that everybody is disposed to be hard-hearted today. Except yourself, Miss Rose. I only hope, for the sake of the rising male sex generally, that you may be found in as vulnerable and soft-hearted a mood by the first eligible young fellow who appears to your compassion, and I wish I were a young fellow that I might avail myself on the spot of such a favorable opportunity for doing so as the present. You are as great a boy as poor Brittles himself, returned Rose, blushing. Well, said the doctor, laughing heartily, that is no very difficult matter, but to return to this boy, the great point of our agreement is yet to come. He will wake in an hour or so, I dare say, and although I have told that thick-headed constable fellow downstairs that he mustn't be moved or spoken to of on peril of his life, I think we may converse with him without danger. Now I make this stipulation, that I shall examine him in your presence, and that if, from what he says, we judge, and I can show to the satisfaction of your cool reason that he is a real and thorough bad one, which is more than possible, he shall be left to his fate, without any farther interference on my part, at all events. Oh, no, aunt, entreated Rose. Oh, yes, aunt, said the doctor. It is a bargain. Is it a bargain? He cannot be hardened in vice, said Rose. It is impossible. Very good, retorted the doctor. Then so much more the reason for acceding to my proposition. Finally, the treaty was entered into, and the parties thereunto sat down to wait, with some impatience, until Oliver should awake. The patience of the two ladies was destined to undergo a longer trial than Mr. Losberne had led them to expect, for hour after hour passed on, and still Oliver slumbered heavily. And we'll go ahead and stop there for this week. As usual, I want to say thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. Please like, comment, and subscribe, as it greatly helps the channel. Light be with you all. Take care, and thanks again.